morning. I'm Reba Tony with Joy in Our Town, Trinity Broadcasting Network's morning talk show, just for Southern California. Now, today we're talking to someone who was brought back from the dead. Yes, he had a near-death experience and has lived to tell about it. He and his mom are here to tell us about how sheer determination, blood donations, and an excellent medical team and prayer brought him back. We'll also meet a mom who lost her child to this terrible disease. And later, we're talking to a medical panel about the clinical side and research. First, let's introduce our guests who've come to share their stories of triumph and loss. Let's start with Sharon and his mom, Star. Hi, thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, this is really exciting because, Star, the last time we talked to you, we only saw pictures of your son.
Yeah.
And it was that the pictures were devastating. They were of your son in the hospital.
Yeah, it was, I remember the last time we was here, we left and Sharon ended up having a sickle cell crisis, and the very next day he ended up in a coma. He had a sickle cell crisis where every cell in his body just burst.
Every cell?
Every cell. Every cell in his body burst. And from that...
You mean every blood cell?
Every blood cell in his body burst. He actually had a sickle cell crisis, and it stressed the body so bad that his cells burst. And when the cells burst, it contaminated the blood completely. And so he had to have what's called a full body plasma exchange, where they come in and they basically put in all brand new blood. So Sharon had over 35 units of blood. Wow. He went into a coma, and they did what's called hypothermia, where they slow down the process of the blood flow. So they put you in what's called a temporary coma state so that the organs can get an opportunity to pull as much oxygen as possible.
It sounds like one of these medical dramas where you see them, they're like, we're gonna put them on ice and we're gonna slow them down, and you think, oh, that's not really possible. They're just doing this for the show.
Yeah,
but this is real.
Yeah, it was real. It was scary. I thought I had prepared myself for anything that can come about with sickle cell, but that particular day I was lost, and I just gave it all to God and just said, you know what, it's on you at this point. Because all the education I had could not prepare me for that day. Wow. It could not prepare me.
And Sharon, congratulations.
Thank you.
By the way, you look great.
Thank you.
Great color on you, the purple, love it.
Big change from the hospital gown I was in.
I bet. Yeah. Now, when your cells burst, when you had this crisis, what happened? Do you remember that moment?
Well, I don't exactly remember that moment. I remember some of the moments leading up to it, because at the time I was exercising and I was riding my bike, and usually I'd ride a few miles on my bike, and I thought it was just a normal sickle cell crisis, so I told my dad that, you know, I was having some pain and take me to the hospital, and that's the last thing I remember, is going in the house and saying, Dad, I'm in pain, and after that I just remember waking up.
Wow,
yeah.
In the hospital?
Yeah, and
How many days had passed?
I believe it was about a month and a half. Yeah.
When you woke up, did you think it was still the same day?
Yes, I actually, I thought I just fell asleep. You know, I asked my dad what time it was and everything. Well, I tried to. I had a tube in my throat.
Okay.
So I couldn't do much, but I was, you know, saying what time is it, and they said it was September.
Yeah. You meant time of day, and they gave you the time of the year.
Exactly.
Wow, well, it is really a miracle that you're here. And we're joined with your physical therapist, Maya. And you were part of the team that helped him physically get his body back, the use of his body back. Tell me about the process that happens when somebody is in a coma state for that long.
What happens is especially with Sharon, what happens is they go into something called rhabdomyolysis. So your body and actually the muscles start to break down and starts to shut down every organ. And as you're laying there, especially for as long as he did, your body, not only from the muscle breakdown, but also the inactivity. So, and then you put in the fact that he also had some nerve damage and some brain damage from all of that that he had to come back from. So you're looking at not only physical, but you're also looking at cognitive issues. So he had several different issues going on with him.
So there's no way you can just wake up from a coma state like that and jump out of bed and
it's not like on TV.
Get a meal and walk around and say...
No, you don't just jump up like you see on TV.
Your muscles have atrophied, I suppose. They've been there. How long does it take for the muscles to start to go away? For me, if I don't
3
work out,
days.
that's what I was about to say. If I don't
3
work out
days.
for a few days, I call it skinny fat. It happens to me like almost instantly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it takes 3 days for your muscles to start atrophying. So just inactivity for 3 days, let alone months. And then you add in, like I said, with the muscle tissue breakdown.
And the nerve damage.
Exactly.
So he had a long road ahead of him.
Very long road and very difficult, painful road.
Okay, and Sharon, did you know that when you first woke up?
No, I didn't. I like you said, you know, in the movies, you see somebody jump up from a coma, and I woke up, and after they had removed the tube and everything, I just felt really fatigued, and I tried to sit up, but I couldn't. And it was because, you know, my ab muscles were just completely atrophied. I had lost about 40 pounds. It was rough. Actually, the first time Maya came to me to help me do the physical therapy, she had to pull me up by my arms, and I couldn't even balance and sit up like I am right now.
Like a newborn baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, when I first met him, I had to work on just sitting balance, just teaching him how to, without the ab muscles, how to throw his shoulders and his head forward to balance over his center of gravity.
Wow. Now, Dr. Miatta, we're joined by Sharon's psychologist, and you would need help at that point, even just emotionally and mentally, to cope with the fact that you're not going to just jump out of bed. What was the process like?
Absolutely. And actually, I did not work with Sharon at that time.
Okay.
I am a clinical psychologist, and I work with a lot of patients who have had sickle cell disease and various other chronic disorders and chronic diseases. And one of the difficulties, of course, is how the family reacts and responds, and how shocking it is to be used to being able to sit up yourself and feed yourself and do things that we typically take for granted very easily. And how difficult it is to then adjust to having to learn how to do those things by himself again and all over again. And particularly for a young man, because, you know, men oftentimes in our society, they really are defined by their ability to do things for themselves. And so that was an extreme kind of loss, and sometimes there's grief that's associated with that because there's an uncertainty about how long the process of recovery is going to last, if the recovery process is going to result in Sharon returning back to his original abilities. Those are things that are very, very frightening and scary for the entire family. So there are a number of very, very commonly experienced emotions and feelings that go along and went along with that process, for sure.
And to piggyback on that, with Sharon, he had a very complicated case because not only did his cells break down in his body and he had rhabdomyolysis, Sharon was in a coma. He code blue twice, one for 6 minutes and one for 15 minutes. And they say after 6.5 minutes, the brain doesn't get oxygen, you can have brain damage. So Sharon was faced with, and we were faced with at the time, were he going to come back mentally, physically, emotionally, all the way around? And then you're dealing with the fact that they wanted to cut off his legs because of the muscle damage. What had happened was that his bottom half of his legs didn't get oxygen. So the tissue was completely damaged. But so we was faced with that. And as well as he was on dialysis, complete renal dialysis for 38 days. So you're dealing with a whole lot of issues here. So we wasn't just dealing with the physical part. We was dealing with the mental, the emotional, the psychological, and the aftermath.
Well, as a mother, you were probably initially just thrilled that he made it.
Oh, yeah. I owe everyone, trust me. I owe all doctors, live stream blood, every single person.
And you talked about the 36 units of blood. Is that 36 different donors?
That's like 16 of us. It could be one donor. And Don can, you know, speak on that more because donors give a lot. So it could be one donor, it can be multiple donors. But 36 units is like 16 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dawn, yes, please tell us. So tell us how 36 units of blood even gets to one person and what that means.
Well, it's a remarkable story from start to finish. And, you know, Star mentioned that at the outset, and before Maya got her hands literally and figuratively on Sharon, that he needed to have his whole body flushed, in essence, of the blood from what he'd undergone. And the most basic truth that I can give you before going into the other part of your question, with all the advances in science we've had over the decades, blood still cannot be manufactured. It still cannot be created. It only can come from one another. It only can come from voluntary donors, and that's what we stress to our people all the time. Now, for those 36, 38 units, generally speaking, they would have come from dozens of different donors and completely anonymous. They may have donated 3 days prior, 4 days prior, 5 days prior to Sharon having his crisis, but that blood was there at Fountain Valley.
Wow.
And the doctors, when they needed the blood, it was there thanks to those voluntary donors. And we stress to people, here's a living, breathing example of what your donation can do. Here's why people should donate blood when given the opportunity, if they're healthy enough to do so. And that's why we urge them to do so. Just look at Sharon today. When we first saw Sharon shortly after, before he was into therapy even, this kid was gaunt. He was not ambulatory. He wasn't the same person. A few months later, we saw what you see now, a robust, happy young man who's interacting with his family and just enjoying life as he should.
And I want to talk to you more about that in the next half of the show. But I did want to turn our attention to Ulcie. Now, Ulcie, you hear all of this, and it is such a victorious story, but that wasn't the case for you. And my heart just breaks that you didn't have the same challenges to go through, but yours was much more difficult. Tell us about your son.
Yes, my son lost his life at 23 years old due to sickle cell complications, and the major complication was not having blood compatibility. He was only 1% match with the United States. He had 2 very rare antibodies that was not found here in the United States. Oh, wow. And my understanding of the Red Cross at the time was national. I thought national meant anywhere in the world, but unfortunately it only means within the United States.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure Don can speak more about how, they derive at finding blood for individuals who need it.
So even you weren't a match for your son?
No, I wasn't even a match.
Wow, and so he had such a rare blood type that when he needed blood, there just wasn't enough of it available?
Well, what happened was at the age of 2, he had a blood transfusion, and at that time he built up rare antibodies, because each time your body has a blood transfusion, you build up more and more antibodies, and it makes it more incompatible to be a match with someone.
Oh,
yes.
I see. So that some of those initial blood transfusions made it harder for him later.
Correct.
And when he had a sickle cell crisis later, it was hard to find the blood that he needed.
Yes, because he had blood transfusions continuously. It wasn't like a one-time deal for him. On and off through his entire life, he had to have blood transfusions. And that happens with a lot of sickle cell patients.
Now, is there anybody else in your family that suffers with sickle cell?
My sister actually lost her life to sickle cell at a very young age also. She was 25 when she lost her life.
So this is something that you've been around your whole life?
Yes.
And you feel that that you can help the community by speaking out about it?
Most definitely. It has been, for a mother to lose a child, it's very, very difficult. It's very hard. I mean, you never get over the grieving process because you have to think of birthdays, Christmas, holidays. Yes.
Is your mom still with you?
Yes, my mother is still here.
Well, now she has someone that understands her.
Totally, yes. Yes.
So difficult, but thank you for sharing your story.
Can I add something to that?
Yes,
because
please.
I think it's really important for people to understand and recognize that the grieving process is different for everyone. And the reason I think it's important to share that is so that people don't assume if they have an unfortunate loss that the grief is supposed to look a certain way. Instead, allowing people to go through their grieving process the way that they need to.
Uniquely.
Because it's very, very empowering for a mother and for other family members to recognize that this is my way of grieving. It may look very different. Some people express through tears, some people share and communicate, others are more withdrawn and they're quiet, and all of those different forms are okay as long as the person is given space to be able to grieve in their own unique way. It's very important to remember that.
All right, next we're taking a look at the different treatments available for those who are suffering with sickle cell anemia. We'll be right back.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad today. Call or visit fatherhood.gov to learn more.
Those
determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
In California, visit knowhowtogocalifornia.org.
My daughter. Come here.
I love you, Dad.
Saving lives is my job. Giving blood is everyone's job.
Give hope.
A car accident changed my life, and without blood donors, I would not be here for my kids.
Give life.
My son with sickle cell disease is living today.
Give blood.
Donate blood with LifeStream, where your gift stays local but makes a world of difference. Call 1-800-TRY-GIVING.
We're focusing on the medical side of sickle cell disease. We have guests here to talk about the diverse needs of people suffering with sickle cell anemia and their families. Also, we'll be able to talk a little bit about what you can do to help fight against sickle cell anemia. Joining our panel is Kiki Shepard, along with Star, Dawn, and Dr. Miatta. Thank you, Kiki. Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, now you're the founder and executive director of the KISS Foundation.
Yes.
And you work specifically to help those with the treatment of sickle cell? Or tell us
the main purpose of the KISS Foundation is to raise awareness in the entertainment industry, which I'm a part of.
Yes.
Because I firmly believe the same thing that Elizabeth Taylor did for AIDS, I think someone in the entertainment industry can also do for sickle cell, because when celebrities speak, people often pause to listen. And in that pause, I think we can educate.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Now, tell me about specifically who's affected in the African-American community with sickle cell.
It's hereditary. So the numbers, I think Star and Dr. Miatta would be able to give you the specific. I don't want to do that. But people, you have to have 2 people with the trait.
Okay.
And each child that they have has a 1 in 4 chance of having the disease. I know it's not a big wide thing. It's 1 in 4.
1 in 4. And you yourself have the trait?
I carry the trait, yes.
You carry the trait. Now, does your spouse, are you?
Nobody else in my family has the trait.
Okay.
It's just like that. I hope this word is okay to say, but it's a crapshoot. You know, it's hereditary, but it goes down in your DNA. And I found out that I carried the trait when I was on Broadway. I was dancing on Broadway, had to go to the doctor for some reason. Whatever reason I went was fine, but he told me as I was leaving, by the way, Kiki, you carry the trait. I said, what's that? He said to me, don't worry, it will never affect you. Now, I don't think he was trying not to be honest and true. I just think he did not know.
He didn't know.
And that's one of the main things that we at the KISS Foundation are about, educating so that you know what it's about.
Now, how could it affect you if you carry the trait? Does that mean that you could one day have sickle cell?
No.
It just means that it could come out in your family somewhere.
If I have a child with somebody else that has the trait, our children, each one of our children has the 1 in 4 chance of having the disease or having the trait or having nothing. That's how it can affect me personally.
Right.
But I really I met people like Star, you know, who just live with this every day, and I just take my hat off. Because I don't have anything. We found that trait does carry certain things like aches and pains that they never attributed to trait before. They are now attributing to trait.
Okay.
And I can testify that I have those aches and pains.
Those aches and pains.
You know, I thought it's just because I was a dancer all my life, but I'm finding out more and more and more. But that's what education is doing for everybody. We're finding out really what trait and the disease can do to you.
Okay, I want to get back to, in a few minutes, more about what you're doing in the celebrity community.
Yes.
But tell us, what are the numbers? Who is affected mostly by sickle cell anemia?
I have a few facts that just recently came out by the Center for Disease Control this year, and 43% here in just California alone, there are 6,200 people living with sickle cell disease. 43% of those people are younger than 18 years old. 21% are between the age of 18 to 29 years old. And then 25% is between the ages of 30 and 50. And 11% is 51 years or older. And alone, there were 486 babies born with sickle cell disease.
Wow.
Just from the year of 2004 to 2008.
So we're looking just in the state of California
alone.
We've got almost half of those that have sickle cell are children and teenagers.
Right, and so we have to educate people. We have to bring awareness about the disease. And the thing is that we need to know prior to getting involved in relationships, because if I have the trait and someone else has the trait, there's a 50% chance that my child is going to come up with sickle cell.
Now, being a single person myself, I can tell you right now, if I meet the one, I don't care what he's got, I'm still going to go through with the marriage.
Right.
All right. If I am blessed enough to meet the one, I'm going through with it. But there are some things that knowing can empower you to do. Just even recognizing if you have a child that has symptoms.
Well, absolutely, because from myself, my husband and I both have the trait. There's a 50% chance, but we have 2 children with full-blown sickle cell. So it affected both of them. And so with that, my son is 25, my daughter is 10. So I had 15 years of gaining knowledge and skills to prepare myself that when I found out that I was pregnant with her and she had sickle cell, then I was prepared mentally, emotionally, psychologically to deal with it, and even somewhat equip myself financially to prepare for those days of loss when I can't work or I can't do things. So that is what these numbers are really facing, is to let you know that you have to prepare yourself, because it is a chronic blood disorder. It's something that you can die of. There is no universal cure for it at the time. So therefore, if you're not equipped with the knowledge to be able to handle the disease, then that's not a good thing.
Right. And Dr. Miatta, talk for a second about a family with a pregnant mom that finds out that their child does have sickle cell.
Yeah. Well, you know, oftentimes, Reba, a lot of people don't really fully understand, first of all, the difference between sickle cell disease and sickle cell trait, and I think we were kind of implying it. And as far as my understanding, there are probably about 70,000 individuals, United States wide, who have sickle cell disease. And the sickle cell disease is actually when the red blood cells take on an abnormal shape, and they sickle in their shape, and so that means they're not able to move through the bloodstream and through the veins properly, and so they accumulate and they get really, really sticky, and they don't move to the different parts of the body the way that we need them to. So sickle cell disease is, as Star was saying, the full-blown disease where there's chronic pain and there's a lot of potential for damage to organs and so many other complications. So when you've got a family who has a child now, that means there's no turning back. We are not going to be able to make that decision as to should we have children, should we not have children. The child is on the way. So what that means is, as Star was saying, it's now time to prepare. And preparation means understanding the disease, recognizing what some of the challenges are going to be, and dealing with the mental health and the psychological fears. I want to talk a little bit about what the emotional reactions and responses are, and it's also important to realize that these are normal. These are not abnormal responses. These are the regular responses that everyday human beings are going to have. And the question becomes, how do I cope with it and deal with it? So there may be anger, anger that, why is this happening to my child? Why is this happening to us? We're good parents, we're good people. God, why did you allow this to happen? There may be fear. Is my child going to live? We've prayed for a child and the possibility that they may not live to be a certain age, and we want them to live a full life. How unfair is this? There may be feelings of anxiety about, am I prepared?
But we know from Star that even with all the sick days off of work and even with all of the pain and the heartache, there's so much joy that comes from these children's lives.
There is, but like she said, I do cope with it differently. People just don't see it. I don't have to wear it on my sleeve.
Right.
But everything she said is absolutely true. I've dealt with that. I still deal with it. Why my children, why can't every day they got to get up and take opiates all the days of their lives? Why? That is a psychological effect on me. And then the effect that it has on your marriage, the effect that it has on you pushing forward to tell your kids that you can succeed, you can do, but they're saying, wait a minute, physically I'm restrained. So now the physical part is taking over the mind. So if you don't have that other part of it, I happen to have all of that part, so I'm able to deal with it, but it's still difficult.
So there's a giant psychological component
Absolutely.
to working with
We're in
this
agreement.
type of
Absolutely.
disease.
And if you don't have that, then I don't think you'll be able to make it. You definitely have to have it.
And Kiki, you're raising awareness about not only helping the physical side, but also just the psychological side that comes with knowing that you have the trait and making choices and decisions after that.
Exactly what they just said is so true. If you know, I don't think anyone is trying to tell any family, any couple what to do. We just like for people to be educated so that when you make your choice, you're making it with education and you're prepared, you're looking forward to the joy that everybody deserves of having a child. But you also know the things that you will be facing. And it's very important. There are a lot of families that have children with sickle cell, but there are a lot of single parents also. And those single parents have a double thing that they have to face because they are alone. And you know, the whole thing about a lot of men that I'm going to have my boy, I'm going to have my kid, you know, my boy, I'm going to teach him how to do this. And you have to understand that how you're going to raise your child is going to be different.
It's going to be different.
But it still can be just as wonderful.
Exactly.
It's still a gift.
Yes, it is. And Dawn, tell us about the gift of giving blood and what the community can do as we're looking ahead to try to raise an awareness about sickle cell anemia and how people can get involved to help.
Well, Reba, we've talked a lot about education, educating people about sickle cell, about how to live with it, how to prepare to live with children and so forth with it. There is no cure, as Star mentioned, but many of those patients do require periodic blood transfusions. And again, as I said earlier, the only way for this blood to be available is for people to voluntarily donate. And we ask, this is a classic case of why we need people to donate blood. There are so few people who are carrying the load. Only about 5% of those eligible to donate are doing so. Being healthy enough to donate is a gift. I mean, I've always felt that way, and I think that should be the general feeling. But this is an example of where the goodness of blood donation really hits home. You see Star, you see her son, her daughter's also profiting from those who voluntarily donate blood, and it's the gift, it's the greatest reward you can give. It's the gift of life. So we urge people to please come on board, look into your heart, and please, if you're well enough to please voluntarily donate blood.
I think this is a great time. I mean, they're saying the economy's recovering, but you know, everybody's not feeling it just yet. But there is one thing that most people can give, and that is blood.
You can give blood without, you don't need to be trained to do so. You can,
you don't have to have money to do it.
We admire.
Does it cost?
You get a return.
Sure, we admire paramedics, we admire firefighters, we admire everyone in the medical profession who helps the body and helps people recover. You don't need all that training to donate blood. You just have to have it in your heart to want to do so. And so we urge people to.
Can I add something to that? Because Don, I'd really like, you know, if you're right with this, Reba, because many people are afraid to give blood. They don't know what the process is, and so that's their reluctance because they don't know if it's going to be painful or am I going to be contaminated or am I going to pass out?
I think people think that they see something on TV and they think they're going to pass out if they give blood.
They have no idea.
There are still those stereotypes, doctor. You're right. It's sad but true. And I've seen guys, big football players, who say, I don't want to do that. Big football players, you know, they're in contact all the time.
They'll get crushed by a lineup of 30 other men.
First of all, donating blood is completely safe, and if it's a pinch that's so brief, you forget it before it's happening. You look at the ceiling, there's a pinch, it's over, and now you've donated blood.
Yeah, if you let me say this: if you're willing to give Botox, you should be willing to give blood.
It's a lot less painful than a lot of procedures people are going through. I'm sure of that.
Can we do that at your next event?
Yes,
can we say that at your next event?
Can we talk? I just want to make sure that.
Yes, I want to definitely. Let's grab the mic here.
The KISS Foundation, the foundation that we founded, we have our big event in September 28th. At Penn's Entertainment Center in Studio City. Go on the website.
I know exactly where that is.
Yes, and it's an outstanding event. A lot of my friends are in the entertainment industry, and they have to come. They have no choice.
I want to be there. Can I be there?
Please be there.
Okay.
But mainly, I would want to say, please, people, go get tested. Just go get tested before you do anything. Find out if you carry the trait. If you do, if you don't. But it's important that we do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, all of you. We are learning more about this disease, and knowledge is power. Give blood. Do what you can. I'm Reba Tony with Join Our Town. We'll see you next time.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Join Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Join Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.